Well, it's 2023 and the Boomer Music Experience is back with Randy Helmo and Dave Scott. And this month, we're tackling Patsy Cline, the legendary one of the very first crossover artists. Randy, I see the picture there. Great work, like always. Let's get into it. Let's talk about Patsy Cline.
Very good, Dave. Patsy Cline. Well, Patsy, she was born in Virginia, Patterson, September the 8th, 1932. And, of course, the tragic plane crash of March the 5th, 1963. Patsy was an American singer. She's considered one of the most influential vocalists of the 20th century, and she was one of the first country music artists to do crossover pop. Wow, that's amazing.
Pretty cool.
Patsy had several major hits during her 8-year recording career, just 8 years recording career before that tragic plane crash. But it also included 2 number-1 hits on the Billboard Hot Country and Western Sides chart. Patsy's first professional performances were at a local radio station, WINC, when she was only 15 years old. How good is that? In the early 50s, Patsy began appearing in local bands led by performer Bill Peer. And of course, various local appearances led to featured performances on Connie B's town and country television broadcasts. So here she's kind of getting into it. She's on radio. She's now television. And this led to the signing of her first recording contract with Four Star Label in 1954. Now, at that time, Dave, I want to share with our audience, Four Star Label, that was a huge record company. But even better than that, Decca Records. They were the top record producing company in the 50s and 60s. When you got a recording contract with Decca, wow, you had it made. But she had very good success with Four Star. She had her singles including A Church, A Courtroom, Then Goodbye. I'd Love and Lost Again from 1956. And she had her first national TV appearance on the Arthur Godfrey's Talent Scout show. How good is that? Of course, Arthur Godfrey, back in that time, he was the pinnacle of talent shows on TV. Untouchable. Nobody could touch him. So after Patsy performed Walkin' After Midnight on the Arthur Godfrey show, the single became her major hit in both country and Western charts and pop charts. This was a crossover, one of her major crossovers, Walkin' After Midnight.
Hey, Randy, was she the first to cross over in your mind? Like, I'm trying to think, and when I read that too, I was like blown away. I did not realize that. Was she one of the first?
I would say she definitely would be, Dave. One of the first to do crossover. And what a voice. Patsy Cline's further singles with Four Star Records were relatively unsuccessful. But she got married in 1957 and gave birth in 1958. She moved to Nashville, Tennessee to further her career. Of course, working with her new manager, Randy Hughes, Cline became a member of the Grand Ole Opry. Huge step there. And then moved to Decca Records in 1960. Yes. Now, under the direction of producer Owen Bradley, her musical sound shifted and she achieved consistent success now. The 1961 single, I Fall to Pieces, which everyone can identify with, that and Crazy were, her, as far as I'm concerned, her 2 biggest hits of all time. In 1961, the single I Fall to Pieces became her first to top the Billboard Country chart. And as the same song hit, Patsy Cline, like this is huge. She really did a wonderful job on that, I Fall to Pieces. And then just a couple of months after that recording, Patsy was injured in an automobile accident, which caused her to spend a month in the hospital. Now, after she recovered, her next single release, as I mentioned earlier, was Crazy. And this also became a major hit, not only on the country and western music charts and radio, but also it was a crossover pop song too, Crazy. During 1962 and 1963, Patsy had hits with She's Got You, When I Get Through With You, So Wrong, and Leaving on Your Mind. These are all great songs.
Can I ask
and
a
they
question?
did traverse the country charts.
Can I ask you a question?
Sorry, Dave?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What was, I mean, where we live in the Hollow of Norfolk, what was that in that era growing up? And I know you were a big music fan back then. What was the feel for her music? I mean, obviously it was a big country and western area, I would think. Was she on the top of the charts locally?
Yes, indeed. In fact, during that time frame, our local radio station, CFRS 1560, it was an AM radio station, had 10,000 watts of power back then. They had played a lot of Patsy Cline from a country and western standpoint, but also from a popular standpoint. CFRS 1560, I know a lot of people listening will certainly identify with that radio station. And they did play a lot of Patsy Cline, along with other songs too, but she was certainly heard of from CFRS.
So in those early 60s, she was right there, top of the charts in both genres.
Oh, absolutely, Dave. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yes. Now, Patsy, in March 1963, Patsy was killed in a plane crash along with country performers Cowboy Copas, Hank Shaw Hawkins, and manager Randy Hughes. And that was during a flight back from Kansas City to Nashville. Now, the one fellow at the airport told them not to fly back. The weather was too inclement. It was very risky, but they decided to board the aircraft and fly back to Nashville. Since her death, Patsy has been cited as one of the most celebrated, respected, and influential performers of the 20th century. Her music has influenced performers of various styles and genres. She has also been seen as a forerunner for women in country music, being among the first to sell records and headlining concerts. Now, in 1973, Dave, this is worth note to share with our audience, she became the first female performer to be inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, 1973, 10 years after before the fatal plane crash. In 1980s, Cline's success continued in mass media. She was portrayed twice in major motion pictures, including the 1985 film Sweet Dreams, and that starred Jessica Lange. She portrayed Patsy Cline. And, of course, several documentaries down the road, Always Patsy Cline, 1991, of course, a box set of her most famous recordings received critical acclaim. And her greatest hits album, get this, sold over 10 million copies in 2005.
I did not know that. Holy smokes.
How good is that? It's just unbelievable. So, Patsy Cline, we'd like to now go back. We're going to visit briefly her early life. Patsy was born in Winchester, Virginia, on September the 8th, 1932. And her mother was only 16 years old at the time of Cline's birth. And her father, Sam, he had been married before, had a couple of siblings. So she temporarily lived with her mother's family in Gore, Virginia, before relocating several times throughout the state. So her childhood was, to say the least, was kind of choppy. It
Yeah.
wasn't a steady influence of the parents.
Right.
She got most of her influence from some of her producers that could realize the sound quality of her voice and that this gal is going places. So it was basically her producers, the record company, Four Star Records and Decca Records. They knew she was going to be a superstar. So at the age of 13, Patsy was hospitalized with a throat infection and rheumatic fever. And this developed into a terrible throat infection, and it really caused a lot of problems. She had to rest her voice numerous times before getting over this infection. Anyway, that was cleared up, and on she goes. We're now going to take a look at Patsy's career, Dave, from 1948 to 53. At the age of 15, Patsy wrote a letter to the Grand Ole Opry asking for an audition. Well, now, she told local photographer Ralph Gribbs about the letter, and a friend thinks, I'm crazy to send it. What do you think? What do you think? Well, Gibbs encouraged her. He said, Patsy, you send that application in. You're more than good enough. And guess what? She got the audition. She got the audition. Grand Ole Opry for Patsy Cline at the tender age of only 15 years young. That's remarkable.
Yeah, that's incredible.
By the early 1950s, Patsy continued performing around the local area. She was asked to audition for the local country band, band leader Bill Peer, and that was a good band. She had a good performing band there. Their relationship turned romantic, and they married a few years down the road after that. And very, very good. In August of 1953, Patsy was a contestant in a local country music contest. She won $100 and the opportunity to perform as a regular on Connie Gaytown's Country Time. Now, we have to understand that Patsy's parents, the family, they were very poor. Money was hard to come by. So, like, this $100 was great for her. Yeah. She gave the $100 to her mom, and, you know, they were living in very poor, they were very poor, her family. And a lot of people don't know this. They didn't recognize this. Right. But anyway.
Well, so, that just, it speaks to her drive and desire, right? To be a musician.
Absolutely. There.
And one of the things I read early on was that at age 8, she had taught herself how to play piano. And that, like, you start wondering, right? This prodigy is just definitely going to take off because you start seeing that so early. And then understanding what she had as far as her voice. And like you just said, going into these talent shows, she understood that she had to help out the family where she could. I mean, that's at a young age, right? She's got that already instilled in her.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. And Patsy, she recorded a variety of music styles while recording with Four Star Records. And these genres included like gospel, rockabilly, traditional country, and of course, pop music. So she really transversed quite a multitude of genres in her singing career. And at that time, in the decade of the 50s and the 60s, this was unheard of. Like, unbelievable. Anyway, Patsy, she made her debut appearance January 21st on the show which Janice Davis, this is important, Janice Davis had chosen Patsy Cline to sing A Poor Man's Roses. And she performed that. And she also performed, at the suggestion of Janice Davis, Walkin' After Midnight. Patsy wasn't too hip on singing Walking After Midnight, but Janet Davis, the producer, she pushed her to perform that song.
She recognized it, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
It blew up.
And the music critics and writers positively praised Walking After Midnight. Like, this was Patsy Cline's signature written all over it.
Yeah.
Very, very good. So this was the beginnings of superstardom for her.
Yeah.
Now, Cline's follow-up single to Walking After Midnight it wasn't really that successful. In September of 1957, Patsy married Charlie Dick, and he was soon sent to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, on a military assignment. It was there she gave birth to her first daughter, Julie. In hopes of restarting her career, Patsy and her family moved back to Nashville, Tennessee. We now look at the years, Dave, 1960, 1961. Patsy's professional decisions yielded more positive results by the early 1960s. Moving to Nashville, she signed a management deal with Randy Hughes. And this was a huge, excuse the pun on words, it was a huge record deal. He organized $50 bookings for her and got her multiple performances at the Grand Ole Opry.
There it is. Yeah.
Like, how good is that? In January of 1960, Patsy officially became a member of the Grand Ole Opry. When she asked General Manager Art Devine about a membership, he replied, "Patsy, if that's all you want, you're in. You're in the Grand Ole Opry. Done deal." Wow. Like that is just fantastic. So her first release under Decca Records, and this was 1961, March of 1961, I Fall to Pieces.
Yeah.
And of course,
classic.
That song went quadruple platinum 4 weeks after it was released on Decca Records.
Did you say quadruple platinum? Did you say quadruple platinum?
Quadruple platinum. Now, back then, that terminology wasn't used. It's quite common in today's world of music. But back then, that would have been a gold record. So a lot of different terminology in the early 50s, 60s versus the music today of 2022. But good to see Patsy release that in January 61, I Fall to Pieces, on the Decca record. And that went right to number one on the Billboard pop charts. Yeah. It also went to number one on, back then they called country music country and Western music. Yep. So it went to the country and Western music charts, which at that time was equivalent to Billboard. Mm-hmm. Now, we take a look at Patsy's peak career years, 1961 to 1963. She returned to her career 6 weeks after the car accident in 1961. Her first public appearance was on the Old Grand Opry, when she assured fans that she would continue to perform. And this was key because there was a lot of doubt after the car accident. They didn't realize if she could ever perform again to her peak level of performance.
Yeah.
So, and she put her nose to the grindstone, and her follow-up to I Fall to Pieces, of course, was crazy. And you'll never guess who wrote this song. Willie Nelson.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
How good is that?
I read Willie Nelson's book, one of his books on him about that, and that song came up. And one of the story, I don't know, it seems pretty legit, is Willie Nelson had written Crazy and was performing it. And Patsy Cline's husband at the time heard Willie play it. And he said, Patsy's got to sing that song. And he literally took Willie Nelson from the stage, and they went to their home so Patsy could hear Willie sing it. And then the rest is music history, because then she sang it. And apparently it was not an easy song for her to sing. Like, it took a number of takes, but the end result was phenomenal. And boy, that put Willie on the map, didn't it?
Oh, it sure did. Yeah. Willie Nelson on the road again. You know? But yeah, that's
it's a
Willie
phenomenal.
Nelson.
Isn't it amazing the way music sometimes just happens?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that just, if her husband's not there, maybe he doesn't hear it. Maybe she never gets that song, right? Like, if, and it fit her. That was, like you said, that was her second signature song by far, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. In November of 1961, Patsy was invited to perform as part of the Grand Ole Opry show in Carnegie Hall in New York City.
Wow, Carnegie Hall.
Now, she was joined by opera stars Minnie Pearl, Grandpa Jones, Jim Reeves, Bill Monroe, Marty Robbins, and Farron Young. These were all
huge
up-and-coming country superstars. So she was in very good company at Carnegie Hall in 1961 with that performance in New York City.
Yeah.
And also in 1961, Patsy went back into the studio to record an upcoming album. Now, among the first songs she recorded was She's Got You, another great song by Patsy. And that was written by Hank Cochran. And She's Got You became her third country pop crossover, here again, crossover, in 1962. And that just sailed up the charts, both country and western, and Billboard to #1. So we've got a major singer here now. These are her peak years. In 1962, Patsy had 3 major hits: When I Get Through With You, So Wrong, and Imagine. And these are also big hits that Patsy performed. In the summer of 1962, manager Randy Hughes got her a role in a country music vehicle film. It also starred, get this, Dottie West, Webb Pierce, and Sonny James.
I did not know that. That's pretty cool.
Wow. And like, just unbelievable. These are really superstars in their own right. So in January of 1963, her next big single, Leavin' on Your Mind, was released and debuted on the Billboard Country chart soon after. In February, she recorded her final sessions for Decca Records, and among them were, of course, another great song by Patsy, Sweet Dreams, and He Called Me Baby, and Faded Love. Now, I just want to kind of sidetrack for a minute here, Dave. Sweet Dreams. This past Saturday night at the Lighthouse Theater in Port Dover, it was the show called The Legendary Patsy Cline Christmas Show, starring Amberly Beattie, and it was titled The Legendary Patsy Cline, and the band was called Sweet Dreams Band.
Oh, that's cool.
There we go. I didn't get a chance to see that.
Me neither. I wish I would have.
There. But
maybe next year.
I was out DJing, had back-to-back Christmas dances this past weekend. Other words, if I hadn't on Saturday, I would have been there to see that performance. I've talked to a few people since then, and Amberly Beattie, she just nailed Patsy Cline.
That's pretty cool.
Big time. Yeah. Great performance. Now we take a quick look at Patsy's personal life. She had close relationships with several country artists, and one of her best friends was the late Loretta Lynn, and we lost Loretta earlier this year. She was just really her friend, her confidant, her positive force in life, Loretta Lynn. Dottie West was another female country artist whom Patsy became friends with. Dottie West, of course, again, instilled in her the sense of she's good enough to perform anywhere in the world. And Jan Howard, she was the third female artist with whom Patsy had a close friendship. So here she's got close friendships with major country singing artists at the time, soon to become superstars in country music.
I think,
how good is that?
Yeah, so, and I think because there was such a small club and they were just breaking new ground for females in country music, I do think they had to be they all had to be good friends because they were breaking barriers, and what an opportunity to work together, right? I don't think we recognize that enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Patsy, she had two children, Julie Simondor and Alan Randolph Randy. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Julie, she had been a significant factor in keeping her mother's legacy alive after that horrific plane crash in 1963. And she promoted her mother's songs well into many decades after that, and good for Julie to do that. Patsy was married twice. Her first marriage to Gerald Cline, March 7th, 1953. And that marriage was kind of rocky, but she survived it. And her second husband, she married Charlie Dick on September 15th, 1957. And the pair, they met in 1956, a year earlier, when Patsy was performing with a local Virginia band. Now, how good is that? That's fantastic. On March the 3rd, 1963, this will be a date that will be remembered forever in country and Western music. Patsy had performed a benefit at the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Hall in Kansas City, Kansas, for the family of a disc jockey, Jack Call, and he had died a week earlier in an automobile crash. Now, after performing in the show, there were performers like George Jones, George Riddle, the Jones Boys, Billy Walker, Dottie West, Stoney Cooper, and the Clinch Mountain Boys, as well as Cowboy Copas and Hank Shaw Hawkins. Now, despite having a cold, Patsy gave 3 performances, one at 2 o'clock, one at 5:15, and the other at 8:15. And those shows, Dave, were all standing room only. How good is that? Wow. Her final song was the last that she had recorded the previous month, and she sang, "I'll Sail My Ship Alone." Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So that evening, the Fairfax airport was dense with fog. They were asked to don't fly, but drive back to Nashville. Well, from there, Virginia, that'd be about a 16-hour drive. So anyway, the pilot said, we can get through the dense fog, not a problem. We can be in Nashville in 20 minutes by air. Well, they boarded the Piper, the PA-24 Comanche plane, aircraft registration number N7000P. On board were Patsy, Cowboy Copas, Hawkins, and pilot Randy Hughes. The plane stopped over in Rogers, Arkansas to refuel and subsequently landed at Dyersburg Municipal Airport in Dyersburg, Tennessee at 5 p.m. Now, they were told not to take off in the air. It was just horrendously dense fog, far too dangerous. And Randy Hughes, he was not trained in instrument flying. Well, why would they even have chosen to fly that short distance? I'll never know. Well, the plane took off at 6:07 in dense fog. Patsy's flight crashed in heavy weather on the evening of Tuesday, March 5th, 1963. The plane was found some 90 miles from its Nashville destination in a forest outside of Camden, Tennessee. And the examinations concluded that everybody aboard, when the plane went down, they had been killed instantly because the wreckage was discovered. The nose cone was buried deeply into the earth. So,
yeah, nothing.
Very, very tragic. Anyway, we move on. Patsy Cline's music. Since Patsy's passing, Decca Records have re-released her music, which has made her commercially successful. It was the Patsy Cline Story. That was her first compilation album, and the label released following her death. Now the album included Sweet Dreams, great song, Faded Love, and this Sweet Dreams from that album, it hit Billboard Country #1 and also Country Music #1. Here again, she's recording these songs that were never played on the radio come forth after her death.
Yeah.
Patsy Cline's music continues to make the charts even in the 1980s. Her version of Always made the Billboard Country chart in 1980. This was a song she recorded back in 1962.
Yeah,
well, here it is 20 years afterwards. Like, that really shows us that Patsy Cline's singing career, although it was short, it was only 8 years, she left the world with very memorable tunes, songs we can sing along with, songs we can enjoy, songs we can relate where we were at that point in time in our lives and what we were doing. Her music was really, in country music, second to none. She was a true leader for many more female country and western superstar singers. Rolling Stone, they put out a box set, 50 Greatest Albums of All Time. And the Patsy Cline collection was in there, and she was in the top 20 collections of all time.
There you go. That's
quite a tribute.
Yeah, really.
A very good tribute to her.
Yeah.
Let's take a look just briefly, Dave, at Patsy's film and television. Patsy had portrayed on film and television several times since the 1980s. The Loretta Lynn, Coal Miner's Daughter, great movie, 1980, renewed interest in Patsy's life and career. And Patsy and Lynn's friendship was portrayed in the film. The actress was Beverly D'Angelo.
Okay.
She played Patsy in the movie and did her own singing of Patsy's original material. Now, of course, she would have to get permission from the family to do that. Here again, copyright infringement. Yeah. But no, she did that. And also in an interview, D'Angelo, this would be 2017, this would be a PBS documentary. She played the role of Patsy Cline and had a profound impact on her life and career. Like, wow, Jessica Lange. Yeah. How good is that? Yeah. So, film and TV. We now would like to take a look at the artistry of Patsy Cline. Patsy was influenced by various musical artists, as I had mentioned earlier. But among her earliest influences, Dave, were pop singers of the 1940s and the 1950s. And just to mention a few, K-Star, Helen Morgan, Patti Page, the Singing Rage, and Kate Smith. Just a few. Among her primary influences was Kate Starr, of whom Patsy was quite a devotee. And she was obsessed with the direction that K-Star brought to her and the positive recapitulation of her career. Now, Patsy's voice. Well, Her voice was kind of a contralto voice. It was emotionally, it was expressive. It was kind of a combination voice, as I mentioned earlier, of gospel, rockabilly, and honky-tonk, all combined into one. She indeed, Dave, had a very unique voice. Now, Patsy's style has been, of course, largely associated with the Nashville sound and a subgenre of country music that linked traditional lyrics with orchestrated pop music styles. Here again, note the crossover.
Yeah.
And this sound helped many of her singles to cross over onto the Billboard Top 100 charts and gain a larger audience that did not always listen to country music. And of course, this helped Decca Records.
Yeah.
Oh, mega.
Yeah.
Let's quickly take a look at the image. Patsy's public image changed during the course of her career. She began her career wearing cowgirl dresses and hats, which were designed by her mother. However, as her music crossed over into pop, she began to wear the sequin gowns, the cocktail dresses, and while she would often wear the cowboy costumes for live appearances, she would also wear evening dresses for television and metropolitan performances. Wow. I didn't know her mother made her dresses for her.
She understood she needed to be where she was influenced how she dressed. So that was going to have an effect on how she was visualized, especially when TV was so big then.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good for her.
And finally in the program, let's take a look at Patsy Cline's legacy. Patsy has been cited in both country and pop music as one of the greatest vocalists of all time. Her voice has been called haunting, powerful, and emotional. Patsy's emotional expression and delivery of lyrics helped influence various music producers, including Owen Bradley. Patsy had been said to kind of help define the subgenre. She received mixed opinions. But oh no, Owen Bradley, he knew better. He knew with her tremendous vocal range, being a crossover artist, she would exceed and excel all music expectations from all these producers, music directors, you name it. Anyway, Patsy has been a major influence on various musical artists, including Reba McEntire, the late Loretta Lynn, Leanne Rimes, who's doing very well in country, K.D. Lang,
wow,
Linda Ronstadt, Trisha Yearwood, Sarah Evans, Dottie West, Casey Musgraves, Margot Price, Cyndi Lauper, just to mention a few. Like, how good is that, Dave? Wow.
That explains it right there, right? That explains her legacy right there. Those
Absolutely.
Alone. Yeah.
And in 1973, Patsy was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. With the induction, she became the first solo female artist to be included.
Huh.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now, the albums she created, Crazy, that was a great album, in which the single off of that, She's Got You, it reached #1 on the Billboard Top Country charts, again re-released in 1977. And in 1995, Patsy received what any artist in music is looking for, their goal to achieve in their lifetime. Well, Patsy did it. In 1995, Patsy received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award for her legacy and her career. Additionally, her hits I Fall to Pieces and Crazy received inductions into the Grammy Hall of Fame.
That's very
And
cool. I
how
did
good
not
is
know
that?
that. Yeah, that is excellent. That is so fitting, right? Such a way to wrap up a show like this with that kind of fitting tribute, right?
Hmm.
What with your DJ business and the crossover that you do, I know you do a little bit of everything, country, western, pop, whatever. Do you see it as well? Do you see that crossover when people want request songs? Do you see that for Patsy Cline? Do you get
Oh,
calls?
absolutely, Dave. In fact, I think it's been more prominent in the last 10 to 12 years than before that time.
Okay.
And I think the reason for that is because of you've got so many great country artists, and both male and female, but more female in the country music world today. As I mentioned, a few like Reba McEntire, Leanne Rimes, just to mention a few.
Yeah.
And the crossover is good because crossover, an artist who can do crossover, always makes it for the people listening on the dance floor.
Yeah.
It's a guaranteed dance floor filler, all crossover music.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I noticed too when we were talking a little bit, and I kind of wondered what you thought on Willie Nelson. I mean, there's a show right there. What do you think?
Hey, great idea, Dave. Yeah, on the road again. Yeah, I
Hit
can't
him
sing
up
with
he
crap.
can be our February artist. We can feature Willie Nelson. But
That's a great idea, Dave. Let's do for the February show. Let's do Willie Nelson.
Perfect. Sounds good to me.
I'm sure
buddy.
the audience would really enjoy that production also. And there's a lot of interesting stuff on Willie, I'm sure.
Yeah, there is.
And writing Patsy Cline's Crazy, how good is that?
It all fits. It all fits together. So much I learned today about Patsy Cline. Thank you. I mean, it was just you're a wealth of knowledge. I know that you do your research on all these artists, and just to be able to find out more about who she was and what she went through, and a woman to be respected and appreciated, and what she did as far as crossover is incredible.
Oh, absolutely, Dave. One of the greatest of all time in country music, certainly country and western music, but also crossover music too.
Well, thanks for doing this, Randy. And let's talk about Willie Nelson in February. I'm excited for this show too. So you take care.
Sounds great, Dave. And thanks very much again for having me. We went over a great history of Patsy Cline, the late, great Patsy Cline. And looking forward to doing the Willie Nelson show with you.
Take care.
Thank you.